very dangerously long period of time. I was honestly a little blurry on how I was going to put forward my many, if slightly chaotic ideas that I simply couldn't decide upon. But if I have a message to pass on during this talk, it is that sometimes that is absolutely fine. I am going to be as truthful, natural, and vulnerable as possible after spending way too much time attempting to prepare this perfect speech in my head, looking up countless articles on way too many topics, when in fact I had the idea right there, threatening me not to bring it to light right from the start. See, I was completely freaking out over this talk, searching for pieces of discourse so beautifully worded and intriguingly convincing that the ideal subject would just come to me and adjacent ideas would simply follow, when I recalled why I had taken the decision to join the TED experience in the first place. It was a struggle to get out of my vicious, unproductive cycle. It goes something like this. I set a goal for myself and I plan to stop at absolutely nothing until that goal is achieved. And every task that I have to undergo and every challenge that I have to face in order to reach that goal antagonizes me in a way that everything has to be done to absolute immaculateness, down to every single detail, always exceeding expectations. And if I'm unable to meet my impossibly high standards, I quite often procrastinate until the very last moment just to end up unsatisfied by the results. You have no idea how much I avoided actually creating the speech because it was so important to me to find a way to help people deal with the struggles of perfectionism that I could not bear in not being perfect. A million thoughts are going through my head right now, and I can't help but make up 100 scenarios of how I could have said something in a better, more profound way. But my purpose allows me to go on. Therefore, in an attempt to free others as well as myself from the shackles of unrealistic ambition, that is what I will be commenting on today. The limitations perfectionism inflicts and how, despite deliberately having its advantages, it's best to try and release yourself from it. How, you ask, and why again? Let's start from the very beginning of my story. I vividly remember growing up showered in compliments and admiration from others, regardless of whether I had actually done something worth praising or not. After all, I was the youngest in my family and thus the little princess with whom all of the adults had the chance to repeat the experience of raising and forming a child. So naturally, everyone strived to bear onto me this immense amount of information that would eventually make me turn out perfect in life. This incredibly supportive and motivated environment that taught me to read by the age of 3, to do basic math in kindergarten, to learn how to ride a bike, roller skate, ice skate, play tennis, play the piano, that made me take dancing, ballet, painting classes and whatnot, all from a really young age, put this unbelievable pressure on me that didn't work so well in my favor. Always watched and always applauded on the results of my actions, I learned to work well under pressure and otherwise to find any means of resolving a problem if it meant obtaining a satisfactory outcome. This resulted in an inability to actually enjoy the process of learning anything and evolving, and I often gave up on activities I'd pick up if I was not immediately skillful at them. This is a more overlooked threat perfectionism exposes you to, a difficulty not only to find a passion in life, but to find the strength and determination to keep it up through its ups and downs. I was used to aiming for the top in everything I did, and over the years I got involved in numerous activities driven by an innate desire to help people, but mostly from a thirst to prove myself and always be the best. This undoubtedly helped me in certain situations, and I especially thrived in competitive conditions in school or school related competitions. But eventually, I got to a point where just being at the top was not enough because it never seemed to mean anything. Status, acclaim, you'll fade away in the middle of the night when you find yourself wide awake and wondering where the feeling of emptiness is coming from. On paper, you have it all. The realization that what I was doing would never truly amount to any fulfillment was simple, but finding and holding on to the path towards improvement was unsurprisingly quite problematic. The first step was remaining authentic to myself, regardless of other people's judgments. This meant not trying to change my views, my feelings, or even personality traits to fit into anybody's standards, just so they could think of me as anything close to perfect. Through this, we enter another deep-seated concern perfectionism may cause, and that is insecurities. We all have them to one extent, because at the we all have them to one extent, however we choose to act on them. Whether we let them define us or not is what truly matters, because at the end of the day, after you've looked left and right at the features of other people, beating yourself up for not being a certain weight, certain height, not having the perfect body or the perfect face, there is one thing that you are left with for the rest of your life: yourself. And even though there's little you can do to change your experience, your exterior, apart from fully embracing whatever it is that makes you feel your very best, you can try to concentrate on what matters most: who you are inside. How do you think about yourself? Could you ever say the sometimes cruel remarks you make about yourself to a friend you hold dear? Of course not. Then why do you see yourself as an enemy? It's hard to find yourself in a world that tells you who you should be, nonetheless to love yourself for it. But you can't count on someone else to save you. You can only do it yourself. Cliche, I know, but I felt it significant to add a little reminder that everyone here is impeccably beautiful, loved, and appreciated. Let's get back on track. Hence, I forced myself to find the confidence to exist on my own terms, not seeking any form of validation from others. And it was nothing but wonderfully liberating. The second step towards overcoming my fear of failure was actually facing it. That one I'm still struggling with from time to time. But with every mistake that I make, I feel like I learn a little more and a little better. And hopefully one day I will fully learn the lesson that mistakes are human and mistakes are the only way towards development. And although they sting, success can blossom from them. Accordingly, I commenced with little things like starting my homework in advance, particularly when I knew I would face difficulties with it, confronting the fact that there was something I was not proficient in, and trying to progress. That's the whole point, isn't it? The third and last step for me was taking all of my ambition and strength of character and putting them to good use. I made an effort to find causes I was passionate about, standing firm in their favor, and I dedicated much of my time towards actually making a change. I educated myself, for instance, on climate change, global warming and its terrifyingly rapid repercussions, and then I took action. I volunteered in cleaning initiatives, whether it was a public space or my own school, whether I physically helped pick up trash or I presented a plan to the school committee on introducing recycling bins in every class that was ultimately followed upon. I did not stop until my goal was achieved. And I haven't stopped fighting for what I believe in and striving to help people in any way that I could. And I don't think I will ever want to. Although I now have many of my enervating tendencies under control, glimpses of perfectionism will always be seen in me. I remain stubborn, determined, annoyingly detail-oriented and scared of failure. However, I believe that I have found a way out, and instead of trying to hide every trait that I believed was toxic in my ways and pretending to be someone I'm not, I embraced every one of these attributes and did my best to turn them into qualities. Today, I chose to talk about something I used to consider to be one of my biggest liabilities, from which I can now thankfully mostly benefit from. I'm still working on myself. And perhaps if you relate to my story, you will be inspired to reflect a little with help from the points I've made. Even if you're not spending your nights going over every single event of the day and torturing yourself over what you could have done better for no apparent reason, I encourage you to try and find that thing that seemingly haunts you and use it to become the best version of yourself there is. We'll never be perfect people. That's 100% okay. But we can choose to turn our imperfections into something good. Because after all, being a good person is more than enough. Thank you.